A good day to everybody out there. This is Fly and Dutchman podcast, and the current guest we have here is a former Marine pilot. Before that, he was enlisted in the Marine Corps, and he is also the author of a book, and you can see it on the screen. Is Ben Lobo Taggart, and he wrote a book. He collected over a period of time call signs, and for people that aren't that familiar, their introduction to call signs might have been from Top Gun, Maverick, and Goose. Well, those are okay call signs, but we're going to learn about some interesting call signs and what they mean and some of the history behind it. Um, so, Ben, welcome to the Flying Dutchman Show.
How you doing, Dutchman? Good to see you.
Good seeing you. So, before we get into the book, I wanted the audience to kind of learn you. Is where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Southern California in a town called Rancho Cucamonga for the most part. I was originally born in Arizona. My dad was a A4 pilot in the Marine Corps. So we moved around quite a bit in the first 6 years of my life. But from 6 on, I lived in Rancho Cucamonga or Upland or Ontario, that area.
Well, was he ever stationed at Lemoore?
No, he was stationed in El Toro, Iwakuni, Quantico, and he did a tour in Vietnam.
Ooh,
yeah.
The A4. Wait, somewhere down the road, we'll have an A4 guest on the show and talk about it. That's an amazing little jet.
It's amazing. Great jet. A great jet.
And so that kind of sparked your interest in aviation.
I started drawing airplanes when I was about 4 years old and just was obsessed my entire life with all things aviation. Still am. I still, love to follow aviation and read about it.
Mm-hmm. Did you build model airplanes?
I built model airplanes, everything. Every time I drew, and I was pretty good at drawing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I just drew airplanes. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And loved going to air shows. I loved, sneaking into my dad's closet and looking at his flight helmet and his flight suit and his boots and all the things that he still had from that time period.
Hey, very cool.
Yeah. And then, of course, obsessed with Top Gun when it came out in 1986.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, how old were you when you saw Top Gun?
I was 12.
Oh, wow. Probably made quite an impact on you.
Yeah, we entered the theater. We got there a little bit late, and so it just, the part about the little blurb about how Top Gun got founded was up on the screen, and then it rolled to the aircraft carrier scenes.
Yeah.
With the music, and the jets slowly going by, and the dudes doing this with their hands, and I stopped. My mom actually had to grab me by the shoulder and direct me to my seat because I was just so locked in on what was happening.
Mm-hmm. And you grow up in at what age? You joined the United States Marine Corps as enlisted, if I understand.
Yeah, correctly. I enlisted in 1993 at the age of 19. I was a reservist, and I signed up to be in the 4th Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion, which is stationed out of Camp Pendleton. Well, it's all over. It's Camp Pendleton, Utah, and Virginia, Maryland, depending on the company you're in. But I was in Alpha Company, and I was a tow gunner, so I shot anti-tank, wire-guided anti-tank.
Off of a Jeep or off of a track?
Off of a light armored vehicle. So light armored vehicle is an 8-wheeled vehicle. It's armored. Most of them have 25 millimeter cannons with a turret, but there's different variants. So there's like a mortar variant. There's a logistics variant. There's a comm variant for communications. And then there's also a tow variant. So it's got a hammerhead tow missile launcher. The tow is the tube-launched, optically tracked, wire command link guided missile system. It's got a little spool of wire on the back of it, so the wire is connected to the launcher. So as it goes down range, it uses optics to track where the target is, and then sends a message to the missile via that wire, so that the missile just continues to make corrections until it hits the target. So even if you have a moving target, and this is old technology. I mean, this is during the Vietnam War. But that's what I signed up to do. And then I couldn't get on a tow vehicle because we didn't have enough. So I was an LAV scout, a guy in the back. So I didn't like that idea. So I went to LAV school and became a crewman. And then I drove LAVs and did that for 8 years. It was great.
Okay. And
Yeah.
the transition to being an officer in flight school, how did that opportunity present itself to you?
Well, I was sort of a not real motivated in my 20s, so it took me about 6.5 years to get through college. But I eventually did, and uh, the summer between my junior and senior year, I had joined the platoon leaders course with the Marine Corps. I went to OCS for 10 weeks, and then as soon as I graduated, I got commissioned as a second lieutenant. So I guess my path was through the platoon leaders course.
Okay. And
Yeah.
of the different careers available to you, you chose flight school,
Oh
or
yeah, I mean there was no other choice.
that was your goal,
That's what I wanted to do. There was no guarantee.
right?
Um, you can get it. The interesting thing is you can get an aviation contract before OCS or before you get commissioned, right? You have to take an aviation aptitude battery test,
Oh,
which has 3 sections. It has like a basic aviation knowledge kind of section,
mhm.
who landed on the moon in
Yeah.
1969,
Do you
stuff.
build model airplanes?
Yeah. And then there's a section where it gives you a picture of a horizon, and you got to figure out if the aircraft is climbing, turning, which
Oh,
direction, is it descending, is it going left, is it going right, which was pretty easy, special orientation. The
mhm.
third section was an algebra test.
Oh no.
And I'm awful at math. I've always been terrible at math. And so to get through college algebra, I spent like 5 days a week. I would go to the math lab just to get through the quizzes and the tests and all stuff. I've never worked so hard on a subject in my life, and I still got a C minus in the class. But you know what? That's all I had to do in college for math, and so
Okay.
it's done. So when I had to take this test, I had to do like practice test after practice test with a tutor, who was my roommate at the time. And when I got the results of the aviation aptitude battery test back, said, you cleaned house on the first 2 sections. I'm going to tell you right now, if you'd missed one more question on the algebra section, your contract would not go through because so I'd missed it. I'd made it by one question, and I got an
Wow.
there at Pensacola. And so I was there for a couple months before I finally started. And it's great when you go to flight school. There's a waiting list before you start training, and the only thing they expect you to do is call in. That's it. Every morning, call a guy, tell him you're alive, and that's it. And then, hey, summer in Pensacola with no job but still getting paid is fantastic.
Yeah.
I screwed it up, so they gave me a job at Pensacola as just kind of an office weenie
Okay.
at Marine Air Training Command Pensacola. So I ruined it for myself. But yeah, and I went to the what was called aviation preparation instruction.
Okay.
Called. So you learn about aviation weather, you learn about aviation systems, mishaps, all this. It's kind of ground school a little bit,
Hmm.
and you learn about navigation. And then from there you go to your ground school where you're going to do your sims and your cockpit trainers, and you're going to
Yeah.
go through emergency procedures and startup procedures and all of the things with really grumpy flight instructors who were naval aviators in younger times, who yell at you and make it very unpleasant. And then you go to primary. You learn how to fly the T-34 Turbo Mentor. At least I did. Now it's
Texan.
T6. I think it's a Texan. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
T6,
T6. Yeah.
which God would be horrifying to fly as a new pilot. I got to tell you, because you got to wear a G suit in that thing. It's got
And it
ejection.
has ejection seats.
Yeah, the T-34 didn't have that. T-34 was a fantastic aircraft.
Yeah. I have a
Uh,
question.
yeah,
When you got your flight suit issued to you,
yeah.
was that cool?
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh well, not really, because I'd gotten a flight suit that was just a little too small.
Uh-oh.
So I looked like I looked like I was wearing the flight suit like a Blue Angels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I had to go back and get all my flight suits, turned in and get the right size. But Oh yeah, wearing a flight suit for the first time is fantastic. You go home, you look in the mirror,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
Go walk into a restaurant wearing it or what?
Well, no, because we're not allowed to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but oh yeah, it was fun. We got sunglasses issued to us.
Oh.
We were wearing our green piss cover. I remember
Hmm.
a buddy of mine had gone together to get our stuff. And he's driving us back to where we lived up in Milton, Florida. And we're like, this is so cool. We were just so happy to be in a flight suit,
Yeah. Did you have patches on it?
Well, we had to get Velcro sewn on so we could wear
Okay.
pants. But yeah.
And you've trained on the T-34 Mentor,
Yep.
and now you've advanced from the 34 to where'd they send you to learn to fly?
Well, so the 34 was at North Whiting Field.
Uh-huh.
So Whiting Field is a naval air station that's in Pensacola. Most of the training happens. There's training that happens down in Pensacola, but those are NFOs that go to
Okay.
flight. That's where they go to flight school. So I went from VT6, the shooters in North Whiting Field, to HT18. Can't remember the ranch hands or I can't remember what our call sign was, but
Yeah.
it's South Whiting Field. And so I started on like everybody else, started on the TH-57 Bravo, which is Jet Ranger, but the Bravo doesn't have automatic flight control.
Oh, you got to work that thing.
You got to hold it. You got to work it. And my flight instructor took me to this big concrete slab, and I think it was Pace. Might have been Pace. It's been a long time. Huge concrete slab. I mean, we're talking probably 6 football fields, kind of all put together. And there was a box that was roughly the size of half a football field. And we were in the middle of it. We had landed. And he says, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to lift up into a hover, and I'm going to give you one piece of the controls at a time. And all you got to do is just maintain that control. So the first thing he gave me was the collective. All he wanted me to do is maintain 10 feet, right? So I get the collective, and I'm doing this with it. He says, okay, I got the controls. He says, now I'm going to give you the pedals, and all I want you to do is keep the nose of the aircraft pointed in that general direction. So I got the pedals, and I'm kind of doing this, and it is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. He says, okay, I've got the controls. Now I'm going to give you the cyclic, and all I want you to do is don't let the aircraft drift forward, back, left to right. Just keep it over the spot. I'm like, all right. So he's got everything else, and I'm squeezing the black out of the stick, and barely just, he says, it's all right. You ready to try all 3 at the same time? And I'm like, and he says, tell you what, I'll get you a 6-pack of Coke if you can maintain, just stay in the box. Just stay in the box, right?
A half
Massive
football
box.
field box.
Right. And so he gives me the controls, and it is just within 2 seconds, he's like, I've got the controls. It just boom, just, still as can be. But you go from that to being able to land on, a moving ship at sea at night on NVGs.
Oh my gosh.
So the training is, incredibly comprehensive. It's very good training. There are a lot of douchebag instructors along the way, but they prepare you for the pressure that you might face if you're landing at night in a storm on a ship, or if you're landing in combat somewhere and you're getting shot at. So the idea is that the whole time they're just crapping on you, but it's building that resistance to pressure is all it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from Whiting Field, we're still at Whiting, right?
Yeah. So I finished. I got winged out of Whiting Field
Okay.
in the TH-57 Charlie. That's the one that's got the automatic flight control. And so you do everything in the 57. So you do instruments. You land on a ship. You do navigation. You do emergencies. You do auto rotations. You do all the things. And then when you finish that, they usually send you to SEER school.
And for the audience here is
survival, evade, resist, escape, SERE. And it teaches you what to do if you get shot down and you're behind enemy lines, and how to survive in the woods or in the desert or whatever, how to evade the enemy so you don't get caught, how to resist the enemy if you do get caught, and then how to escape from the enemy if you do get caught. I think it's a 2-week course. I don't know for sure because I never went. And I'll explain that in a second. It's a 2 week course, and then I think there's a 24 or to 48 hour period where you're dropped off. You've got to survive. You've got to avoid being captured. And if you haven't been captured at the end of a certain period of time, they throw out a bullhorn, and you're supposed to walk down to a road and get picked up. And they throw you in this prisoner of war camp where they do things to you. And I won't get into that because that's sensitive.
Okay.
And the whole time you have to apply what you learned in the classroom. You got to apply that resistance, and then you got to look for opportunities to escape. Although I think they don't let you escape. I think it's like you're not escaping. I didn't go to that school because my then wife was pregnant with my first daughter.
Oh.
And so they held us in Pensacola because she was due any day. So while everybody went off to SEER school, I stayed in Pensacola. My wife gave birth, and then we drove across country because I had a start date at the CH-46 Fleet Replacement Squadron at Camp Pendleton, California.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Did you know much about the CH-46 before you reported?
No, it was the aircraft in the inventory I wanted to fly the least
Because
because I thought it was unattractive.
it is.
I thought it lacked sexiness.
It has a nickname, doesn't it?
I was completely wrong about that because when you look at the CH-46, it's got lines that remind you of surfing. It's sexy as hell. It had a lot of heart. It served in the Marine Corps and the Navy. It's still flying in other countries. It's one hell of an aircraft, and we say frogs forever. We spell it PHROG.
Why?
And the forever is spelled PHOREV. I can't remember a spell, but nobody knows why we spell it with a PH. But what we mean is frogs forever. And if you're a crew member of a 46, if you're a mechanic, if you're in a 46 squadron, everybody loves the 46. It was a great aircraft, and it definitely did its time for the American people. So
yes, yeah. Since
so
Vietnam.
so it turns out I did not have the aptitude to be a jet pilot at the time, and I was better suited for helicopters, and so I'm happy that I did go CH-46s. I think I did. I think it would have gone a lot. I don't think I would have made it through flight school if I'd gone jets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of flight demonstrations of the 46, and it's pretty impressive. It's the Forest Service uses it. There's all kinds. And yeah, it's popular in foreign countries.
The Swedish still fly it, and they do a flight demonstration at air shows that is very, very impressive.
Yeah,
I never did any of those maneuvers while I was
just approach the ship at night in foul weather. I mean, there had to have been more than one occasion where you're like,
oh, there was.
Yeah.
So
tell us.
Can't remember the area. Is Guaisangnan or something like. We were doing a humanitarian disaster relief operation in the Philippines, and Philippines has got a lot of teak wood, which is very expensive wood. It's used in a lot of stuff, and it's it's worth a lot of money. And it grows a lot in the Philippines. But the roots of the teak trees, they hold the soil to the hills. And logging is illegal in the Philippines, but unscrupulous politicians grant permits to unscrupulous people. They go and clear out the trees, and they take everything because the roots are made of teak also.
Oh, wow.
So they need that.
Oh, no.
So when they take it all, there's nothing anchoring the soil onto the side of the hills. And so when the rains come, it just turns that area that was the nudity of the trees turns into a mudslide. And if there's a village down below, it's going to get buried. And we did an exercise like that operation like that in 2004, right before the tsunami. And then we were doing it again in 2006, and 1,800 people buried.
Oh,
right. So we were doing this operation. We were off the coast of the town where it happened. The ship had moved out into deeper waters, and we were flying from the ship to the disaster site up to this airport called Tacloban, which is where MacArthur had landed when he returned to the Philippines. and back and forth. It was sort of that triangle. And we went to a couple other ships as well. But, you know, we had a schedule. We had things we had to pick up, people we had to drop off, and so on and so forth. And our wingman, we were the dash 2 for our lead, which was the Squadron XO. And we flew. It was a 13 hours of flying that day. It was a lot of flying. And a storm had come in the evening. And it was sort of the Black Hawk Down scenario, you know, getting the goggles ready for the flight. And then the aircraft commander says, you're not going to need those. We're going to be on deck by 5 o'clock. Well, we needed them, as it turned out, because we ended up flying until about 8 o'clock at night. And the CO had gone off to pick up, the XO had gone off to pick up some VIPs and bring them back to the ship and then shut down. Meanwhile, we had to do one more run up to Tacklerbog to pick up 3,000 pounds of gear and bring it back down to the disaster site. But we didn't have NVGs. I think our crew chief had NVGs. And so we flew down and we were navigating because in the darkness, we could see the wave breaks. We could see the whites of the wave breaks. And so our landing zone in the disaster area was a schoolhouse. So it was a square of yard in a schoolhouse. Mm-hmm. And we could pick that out because there was a pier that led right into it. But, you know, figuring out where to land in the dark with, you know, rain coming down sideways. There was a guy in the LZ with like a glow stick on a string that he was spinning. So we get in there and we land, and then we got to fly back to the ship. And on the way back to the ship, nothing was working for us. The only thing that was working for us was that we could pick up the ship's tack end. And the tack end gives you radial and distance to the ship. Mm-hmm. We're flying to the ship, and we get to 3 miles away from the ship. And the ship is on full bright. They've got all their lights on for us. Okay. We're the last aircraft recovering. They got all the lights on for us. And we're 3 miles from the ship. We still can't see it. Wow. We got all the way to within a mile and a half before we finally started to make out the ship, and then it disappeared again. We just kept flying towards it. We didn't even do the brake. We did a straight in right into the back of the ship. The ship was just all over the place. Wind was blowing. The rain was coming down, and I wasn't on the controls. The aircraft commander was on the controls, but he is just, doing everything he can to rescue, to wrestle this aircraft. And so he finally, lines it up and lands it. It was one of the worst landings I've ever seen, except for the fact that we walked away from it. But yeah, I mean, you do find yourself in a situation where, you might have to land at sea in a storm, and, you're the guy that's got to do it. So
yeah, you are the guy that has to do it. So what ship was that you were?
So that was the USS Essex. It was back in 2006.
How many different ships have you been assigned to?
I've been on 4. So the first ship I was on was in 1996. I went to an exercise in South Korea on the USS Fort McHenry, which is an amphib ship. Okay. And then deployed on the USS Essex with my squadron in 2005 and 2006. And then deployed on board the Wasp from 2018 to 2019 as the Air Ops officer, and then the USS America from 2019 to 2020 as the Air Ops officer. So I've got some time at sea. I'm proud of it. It's all right.
And you deployed to Afghanistan.
So my first deployment was in Iraq.
Okay.
I did not do great in my squadron. I had a hard time there. I was sent home after 3 months to be the family readiness officer. So I only did 3 months in Iraq, and it bothered me a great deal that I didn't get to finish the deployment. Mm-hmm. I sort of became obsessed with, making up the time. And so I volunteered to go to Afghanistan in 2010 as a JTAC with 5th Anglico, Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company.
Oh, okay.
That's where I got to work with the Brits. Well, that's the first time I got to work with the Brits. The battalion commander that I had of the 1 Scots was a great dude. He got promoted to Major General, and I ended up working for him again by pure coincidence in 2017-18 at the deputy advisor to the Ministry of Interior.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. But I did a tour in Afghanistan in 2014 as a AFPAC hand as an advisor to the Afghan Special Mission Wing, which is sort of like the Afghan version of the 160th Special Operations.
Oh, the Night Stalkers?
Night Stalkers, yeah, and they were good pilots. They were good crews. The Afghan crews, they were NVG qualified. They were really good. They flew Russian-made Mi-17 helicopters and PC-12 Pilatuses.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was a good unit and had a lot of potential. So I
yeah.
advised there for 10 months, and then I went back in 2017, 18 to advise the Ministry of Interior. I was the senior advisor for the for the chief of the Afghan border police, which was weird because I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not a pilot. I'm a pilot,
Yeah.
I'm not, you know. But we were following a strategic plan, and that's what we were advising them on. So it wasn't that hard.
And your time with the Brits, the subject of call signs came up.
Yeah, so that was the 17-18 trip. I was, because I was a pilot and because I wore these gold wings on my chest, which were the same as Maverick's wings. They started asking me about Top Gun and stuff, and then I ended up telling him a couple call sign stories that because every pilot has a couple call sign stories that that they tell others when other people talk about call sign stories.
Yes.
And pilots love to sit around and talk about call sign stories that they've heard. This is one of the things we will occasionally discuss. And so I was telling these stories, and one of the guys said, "Well, you should collect these stories and write a book." And that was the first time I'd ever given that any thought. And then I got assigned to Japan on the USS Wasp, and it was just it all just kind of lined up.
Your book, and it's up on the screen as we're speaking, is those photographs are your photographs?
Yeah, I took all the photos. Yep.
Did you ever take a photography class?
No, it's just my hobby. It's just something I picked up. You learn.
They're nice photos.
Yeah, thank you. I think my big thing for photography is I just look at what photographers that I admire. I look at what they're doing, and I try to emulate it in my photography. And so I kind of have. I think I'm good at composition. I don't think I'm great at editing, but I'm working on it. But yeah, I really like photography. It's my
they're very nice. So you now have the inspiration to write a book. You're on the Essex. Which one were you on when you started?
I was on the USS Wasp when I started.
Wasp, okay, and you're on the Wasp, and now you're collecting call signs.
Yeah,
and everybody's heard of John McCain. He had a call sign, and this is where this will be where we're gonna jump off from. John McCain's call sign was what?
Playboy.
Playboy. And he was called Playboy because he was a playboy.
He liked women with open minds.
Yes, he did. So hence the call sign Playboy. I'm not sure how many call signs are in your book, but just a ton of them. And we learn a lot of call signs are acronyms. You have a process to be assigned a call sign.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways.
Okay.
You can get one on the spot, right? You do something and somebody says, your call sign is this now. And it will be made official at some ceremony later on.
Okay.
Usually people get their call signs through, depending. Ashore, you get your call sign through a kangaroo court, right? Kangaroo court, you're familiar with the term.
Yes.
You're a guilty bastard until proven innocent. Everybody involved is a guilty bastard, except for the head table. And then there's court proceedings, and there's traditions, and there's all these things that we do. But one of the parts of the kangaroo court is to do call sign, vote on people's call signs, and that's essentially where you get your call sign. And the thing about call signs is, the more you hate it, the more it's going to stick. If you appear to like your call sign, it's only going to motivate somebody to come up with another call sign for you that you're not going to like.
Do people, hey, this is what I want my call sign to be, Spike or
there have been those people that made that fatal mistake.
It's a fatal mistake.
That somehow they didn't look around and figure it out. They just thought they got to pick their own call sign. And that is going to get you in a lot of trouble. If you go into a squadron and you're like, yeah, my call sign's Tex, that's what I want to be called by. They're like, nah, bro, Your
Uh-huh.
call sign is going to be something so much worse than text.
Yeah.
You know?
Um, you said that your call sign is going to be much worse than text. I want to
Yes.
talk about an example of a call sign that an individual in his young life, his mother died in a car accident or had
No, no,
passed
no.
away.
So this story is not in the book because I'm trying to write another book.
Oh, we don't have to
Working with
talk
the
about
Navy
it.
to try to go out on an aircraft carrier so I can take pictures from an aircraft carrier and capture that side of naval aviation because right now I've only got the one side. But I still collect call sign stories.
Okay.
So one of the stories that I collected is a guy whose call sign is Bambi because at some point, just, in conversation somewhere, he said to one of his squadron mates that his mother had been had been killed in a hunting accident when he was a kid.
It was a hunting accident.
And so his call sign is Bambi. And it's that has all of the elements of a perfect call sign. It's flawless. For one, it's not a long story. It's quick. You can tell that just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's of a sensitive nature, right? This guy might take some offense or be sensitive about his mother's death, right?
Sure.
But what it's done is, and this is what all call signs do, right? It takes something you're embarrassed by, something you're easily offended by, or something, that maybe traumatized you or something like that, and it takes it and it makes it not so serious. It actually does you a service because it if you look at it and see what it really is and what call signs are really about, you realize, you know what, it is something I can laugh about at this point.
Uh,
Maybe I can laugh at myself a little bit. I can,
uh-huh.
accept that maybe it's not that serious. If these guys are going to give me a name based on this embarrassing thing I did, but they're still going to accept me into their ranks, and you know, maybe it's not that bad, and you can kind of shuffle it off. So that call sign Bambi captures that perfectly. It's also awful. I mean, it's just on the surface, it is an awful call sign,
Yeah.
which is a great element of a good call sign,
Yes.
right? Because when I tell that story to people, people are like, "Oh my gosh, they did
Yes.
not." Yes, they did. Because call signs are mean spirited. The more you
Yes.
hate it, the more it sticks. But call signs are about camaraderie because guess what? You get a shitty call sign. We all got shitty call signs. We're all going to use it as a term of endearment when we see you later at the airport, in another
Uh-huh.
life. And so call signs are actually I think they're kind of a beautiful thing. They're more about camaraderie.
I
I didn't
I
feel that
agree.
way when I got my call sign because my call sign essentially was saying you're an idiot,
Your
right?
call sign is Lobo.
Yes, which I like to tell
Expand on
people
that.
Spanish for lone wolf, right? Steely eyed
Uh-huh.
killer, throat sticker, right?
Yeah.
No, it's short for lost boy.
Why were you a lost boy?
So when I showed up to my squadron, I was immature, even though I was 30 when I showed up to my squadron. I was just an immature guy.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was sort of I had been enlisted before and I didn't quite know how to behave like an officer yet. That was part of the problem. And the other part is when I find myself in a new situation, I'm like deer in the headlights. And, my situation awareness wasn't great. Although I never crashed an aircraft and I think I flew safely.
Mm-hmm.
But so all of these things kind of stacked against me. And the guy that suggested it was, for whatever reason, I don't think he liked me very much. And so the call sign that I got was Lost Boy, which I'm like,
Okay.
I'm so disappointed in my calls. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. That's,
There it
like,
is.
and so everybody called me Lost Boy. And then I had a buddy whose call sign was Crack because he bent over and revealed his ass crack during the kangaroo court. But he'd also been a former crack dealer, right? So it's kind of a combination of those two things, but
Yeah.
really good dude. And he was like, Lobo is too extraneous. We're going to call you Lobo from now on. And so it slowly transitioned. And the more crack, used Lobo, others started to use it. And sort of like, it slowly transitioned to Lobo. And so my call sign's been Lobo ever since. There was one guy in the squadron who really didn't like me. And he was the WTI in the squadron. And
Weapons trainer or what is
weapons tactics
WTA?
instructor. So I think he was
Tactics.
the pilot training officer and the weapons and tactics instructor. And he was
Okay.
sort of like, if you want quals, you better kiss my ring. You better, kind of thing.
Yeah.
he did not like me because I didn't fit in. I was Mormon. I didn't drink. I just was sort of out of the norm.
Yeah.
And also I was struggling in the squadron to like fit in.
Uh-huh.
But eventually I fit in. Eventually I got some quals and I did okay.
Sure.
But I would joke when people asked me what my call sign meant. I said, "What does LOBO stand for?" And I would say, "Oh, it means lone wolf. I'm a steelhead killer." And if this guy heard me say that, it would infuriate him. It's like, tell him
Oh,
what your call sign really is. And I was, dude, I'm joking. Relax. And that's
wow.
I'm a dad joke guy, so I repeat jokes over and over again. So yeah, I will tell you, I do not lie about my call sign. I have no shame. I was everything that call sign said I was, so I accept it. But I've moved on. So
Well, we're going to talk about call signs, and I'm going to have you explain some.
yeah,
And I have through your book, but the one that cracks me up is the first female F-35 pilot, Yato,
yeah.
YATO. What does that stand for?
So you are the one. And then the F-35, I think other tactical jets have it. If a missile, let's say you're in contested airspace, there's missiles flying everywhere,
Uh huh.
right? If a missile has chosen you, its radar is painting you, right? The Yato horn sounds, and the Yato horns, you are the one. The missile's coming at you.
Uh
I
huh.
don't know if it's called Yato officially. I'd have to do some research on that. But yeah, it's you are the one. Do some pilot shit, right? Like
Yeah.
steer. Turn away from the missile, and so the reason she got it is because she earned being an F-35 pilot,
Yes.
100%, right?
Yes.
Excellent pilot, amazing Marine officer. She's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But the Marine Corps exploited her because of her sex.
Yeah.
I don't mean exploited. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to
They're
do.
going to promote it most
Other
certainly.
women to join and be inspired. And so I think that's all goodness. But the idea is like, people are like, you were exploited by the Marine Corps. And she kind of, I think she laughs it off. But, so she was the one that was chosen by the Marine Corps. So you are the one.
Uh
So her husband, who she met in flight school, he selected F-18s. He didn't get F-35s. So his call sign was WISP, which was Wife is Superior Pilot. But he's gotten a call sign change because he's now transitioned to the F-35. And so his call sign is now Yanto, which is you are not the one.
Oh, that's classic.
So there will be an update to that call sign in the next installment. So
Okay. I look forward to that
yeah.
installment too. I really enjoyed your book. We have a person whose call sign was Wedge, and he was a
Yep.
Harrier pilot, supposed to be pretty smart.
Yep.
And when you're selected, do you recall this call sign in your book?
Yeah, I think it's the simplest tool known to man.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You got a Harrier because you scored high, but this
Yeah.
guy didn't come off as that. We have. I'm going to get to some of the basis for the humor. Um, we have a call sign for a MH-60 pilot, Sarah,
Yep.
and
It's one of those funny stories because they're gonna go shoot a missile. I forgot. I think they shoot Mavericks.
yes,
So we went out to shoot a Maverick missile or
and
whatever.
Hellfires as well.
Hellfire is Hellfire. Sorry, my bad. Went out to shoot the Hellfire, and before you do it, you do a rehearsal run. So you're going to do your attack run. You're going to go through the procedures in the cockpit with your co-pilot and your crew, and you're going to go around. And not only that, but you're clearing the range. So you're doing all these things. It's for safety. It's to make sure everything goes right. Well, during their rehearsal run, he accidentally mashed the button and launched the missile. And you're supposed to say before the missile goes off the rail, you're supposed to say actual rifle away, meaning I'm fine. The missile's going down range. So he fires the missile, it leaves the rail, and he goes, shit, actual rifle away over the radio in a panic. And so that stands for Sarah. Yeah.
That's pretty good. What are some of your call signs that stand out for you that you've come across?
Well, one of the worst is gotta be fungus. I don't know of a worse call sign than fungus. So the guy's only sin was he was new to the squadron. He just showed up. He was in the ready room. I think he was getting ready to do like some kind of training or something, part of his check-in process. And one of the older pilots looked at him and says, "Your call sign's fungus," and which is bad enough by itself, except it stands for "F you, new guy, you suck."
No room for improvement.
Yeah. There's one of my favorite call signs is red. Now, I will tell you, the book is
Yeah.
a little controversial. It's definitely not for children.
Okay.
But a lot of stuff. Thailand is a magical and a wonderful place, and there's shows there that are not they're rated R, NC-17 that you can go and see. There's ping pong shows and that kind of thing. If you don't want me to go into this, I can stop right now. But it's a little naughty. C-130 pilot and his buddies had gone to a show in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
And various ladies got up and did various things with their lady bits, shooting ping pong balls, shooting darts. Well, one of the ladies had a talent for shooting little red potatoes, and she could shoot them all the way across the room with her vagina, with a kegel. Right?
Yeah.
Now,
that won't be on the screen.
Yeah, the 3 Marine C-130 pilots were drunk as skunks. And there were lights flashing, and it was low lit. The lady shot a potato across the room. And in his drunken state, somehow he finds his inner ninja, and he reaches up and he snatches the potato out of the sky. And to make matters worse, he then threw it in his mouth, chewed it, and swallowed it. And so his call sign is Spud. But if you were to say, I'm going to jump in the water if you don't give me soda or something like that.
Okay.
Somebody would say, if somebody in the group says Manchester, you either have to execute the thing that you just said in jest, or you got to buy everybody a beer, or on the ship, because there's no beer, you got to accept a slap to the face.
Have you seen that slap?
I have seen it. And I've also seen somebody spend a lot of money on beer because of the crowd that was around. But there's a counter to it, which is you could say, I'm going to go upstairs and kick the captain of the ship in the testicles. And then before anybody says Manchester, you go, no Manchester. And then you're immune.
Yeah, you're not expected to follow through on that type of
thing. And there was something, we had a flight plan. The captain made a decision for the navigation of the ship, which was going to significantly impact the flight plan.
Oh.
And the Marine Expeditionary Unit Air Officer said during our air planning board that he was going to call the captain up and give him a piece of his mind. And one of the F-35 pilots said Manchester, and he went, crap. So he got on the phone, called the ship's captain and said, "Sir, I just lost a bet. I have to give you a hard time because somebody called Manchester on me." And the captain, who was a great dude, Captain Frost, fantastic guy. He said, "No worries, Scully. I completely understand. No worries." It was fantastic.
Oh, that's very good response.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about the ship. Just a couple of things. It's Marine Air on those ships,
for the most part,
with one
Marine
exception.
Air that are associated with Marine Expeditionary Units, which are a Marine Air Ground Task Force. The exception is that you have 3 MH-60 search and rescue aircraft that are flown by the Navy, usually HSC squadrons or sea combat squadrons, and then they fly the Mike version of the MH.
Yeah.
Or the Sierra. They fly the Sierra version. Sorry, the Mike version is the Army version. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is I've seen photographs where I've seen the Seahawks on there, and I'm thinking, we're probably doing replenishment or something. Yeah. And reading your book, I discovered that they're actually assigned to the ship.
Yeah.
And
their primary mission is search and rescue, but they do a lot. They'll do, if we have recon guys on board, they'll be involved in inserting recon guys on ships or whatever. But they also do replenishment at sea. Mm-hmm. And it's really fantastic to watch them do that because, they're going from the the support ship, the one that's got the supplies, and they will go in there and it's almost like watching a ballet. They'll swing in, they'll hook up, they'll lift up, and they just keep on going back. And it's like they understand how the pendulum is going to swing underneath them. They use that momentum to their advantage. But watching them do replenishment at sea is one of the most fun things you can ever watch, because they're phenomenal at it. And they may be a little rusty when they first start, but within a couple of picks, they're crushing it.
I'll have to look for videos on that. I'm interested in seeing that.
It's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
Interesting. And we're getting close to that time, but I wanted to touch on a subject. I read an article in Proceedings magazine, and it was the pros and cons of staffing the ships with one or two squadrons of F-35s and making them mini carriers to operate as to boost up the offensive capabilities. But some of the cons of that was the class of ship that it is when it comes to defensive and suppression, fire suppression or something. The amount of storage, I might have it wrong, but the amount of storage of weapons and the amount of replenishment it would take.
Yeah.
But you were an air officer on these things.
So I was the air operations.
You have a better perspective on that.
So
thought.
I think the Marine Corps and the Navy first tested the concept out on the USS Wasp. We went down to participate in an exercise called Balakatan in the Philippines, and we left most of the Ospreys and 53s behind, and we loaded the ship up with, I think it was 10 F-35s, which is 4 more than a normal contingent of F-35s on board one of these ships. And it was an interesting concept. They certainly launched more. You could get more in the air at the same time. You could spread load the combat coverage and all of that. It was great in that regard. I think one of the biggest drawbacks to it is you're just basically putting a bunch of F-35s at risk of being taken out all at once. Because ultimately, you either take the ship out with the F-35s on board, or you take the ship out while they're out flying, and then they've got nowhere to return to, and eventually gas is going to run out.
Yeah.
I mean, people can say the same thing about aircraft carriers. I get it. But I think aircraft carriers have a much more robust air defense capability. They've got all the frigates and cruisers that are, ships around them.
Yeah, it's quite a battle.
They've got a lot more defense on board the ship itself.
Mm-hmm.
What the LHDs and LHAs do have on board is a lot of guns in the form of U.S. Marines. And so the U.S. Marines can bring LHDs up to the flight deck with their 25 millimeter Bushmaster cannon, take out service targets. They do have the Sea-Wiz on board. They have rockets, missiles on board that are air or surface-to-air missiles. So they do have some defensive measures. They can plus up those defensive measures just by getting the Marines out on the flight deck with their crew-served weapons. But it's. I think it is a risk. Also, I think the thing you deal with is that the taxiway and the runway are one and the same, which means you're not launching aircraft while aircraft are getting taxiing to the rear and getting stacked up back there. So there are some drawbacks to it, but I have not been part of the planning since I left the ship.
Yeah.
But we did get to see kind of a first iteration of that with 10 F-35s.
Okay, pretty cool. And going back to your book now, I didn't look up how many copies been sold and stuff, but I imagine it's being well received. It's a hilarious book, very insightful. And you mentioned the transition of call signs back in the day, what they were. Now it's more acronyms. It's a little more politically correct. Right. And in fact, it's almost going away on some levels, if not being toned down.
I think because if you're a CO in a squadron, and your higher ups find out that there are call signs that are maybe a little bit off color or offensive, or they don't meet the current mold. You don't want to risk your career by not obeying the rules and regulations that have been set forth. The naval operations be like, all right, we have to have rules to this now. So any call sign that has anything to do with race, sex, drugs, alcohol, crime, you name it. We can't have any of that. And the perfect example of that is when Top Gun came out. Boy, this is going to make the air boss mad at me. When Top Gun came out, the one of the instructor pilots that was an advisor for the film, his call sign was Trike.
Trike.
And the reason his call sign was Trike is because when he showed up to his first squadron after having learned how to fly the F-18, he was blonde hair, blue-eyed, just pure muscle, just an absolute specimen of a dude. Just like Dolph Lundgren or some German wrestler. Like this guy was just built. He still is, I'm sure. His call sign is somebody in the ready room when they saw him. They said, "You look like the poster child for the Third Reich." And it's Trike. Well, that might offend some people, right? It wasn't meant as a celebration
but yeah,
of those people. And so the air boss wanted a list of the call signs because Maverick, Tom Cruise, just like in the original movie, he wanted the call signs to be listed in the end credits for all of the pilots that.
Oh.
So the air boss, who's a 3-star admiral in the Navy, he said, "I want to see the list of call signs." And he looked at the list, and the only one he asked about is, what does Trike mean? Right? And there's 2 stories for every call sign. There's the story you tell your mom, and then there's the actual story.
Okay.
The squadron commander told the actual story. And so the air boss said, not only no, but heck no. And he got that call sign thrown out. That guy's call sign was removed. I'm sure his friends still call him Trike.
Yeah.
Official call sign is no longer Trike, and which is unfortunate because certainly he's not a white supremacist, right?
No, of course not.
He just looked like the poster child of
the
Third Reich, which is a compliment to him, but it's not, but probably not the greatest choice for a call sign, but that's kind of where it's at. And so call signs are now controlled. If there's going to be a kangaroo court, whatever call signs come out of it have to be submitted in a letter to either a group commander or a wing commander, and they have to approve it. They have to approve the list. And if they have questions, they'll ask. And if somebody's call sign is on the naughty list, it will have to be reassigned. So
yeah.
That's the way it is now.
It is the way now. But you also mentioned that you're going to be working on a second book.
I am trying to do a second book. I'm working with the Navy right now to go out on an aircraft carrier so I can take pictures on a CVN instead of an amphibious aircraft carrier.
Uh-huh.
All the pictures that are in the book we're taking on board there. I'd like to capture the other side of naval aviation, and then maybe even take some shore pictures of naval aviation ashore, just so I can kind of cover the trifecta. Yeah.
Oh yeah, get you some P8s in there and P3s.
Yeah. Because naval aviation isn't just carrier aviation. There's C-130 pilots and P8s and
yes, yeah,
and instructor pilots at flight school and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much broader, but it all is meant to defend our maritime interests.
Yes, it is, which are very important interests.
Yep,
definitely. Well, I think that we're at that magic hour, and Ben, I would just tell you how much I appreciate you being on my show and sharing the information. And I bought the book, I read it, and I told my wife that I want to get you on the show. My wife is my producer, so she'll go get people, and I read a lot. And sometimes a book will just, resonate and I want to share it with people. And this is how I do it. And I appreciate the photographs are awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate
your photographs. And you don't call yourself, do you call yourself a professional photographer?
Nah, I don't get paid for it. It's just something I do for fun.
I've
got paid a little bit for this, but I mostly just post my pictures on Instagram, and that's pretty much all I do with them.
Oh, okay.
So,
very good. So, is there any parting words you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just really appreciate you having me on the show, and talking about the book is obviously helpful, and encourage people to read it. Just know that it's maybe a little PG-13, not for the youngins. There's some pretty off-color stories in there.
Yeah.
I have done my best to defend or to protect the names of the call sign bearers,
Uh-huh.
because there are some embarrassing call sign stories in the book, but
There
I don't
are.
want anybody to get in trouble because of that. So,
You don't.
but it was a lot of fun to write the book, and it's very satisfying to just have the book and hold it and look at it myself. So,
Yeah, it's no easy feat to write a book, I'm sure.
for me though, it was as easy a subject as I could have hoped for. Just because it combined the photography thing with I like writing and I try to be funny. So,
I think you are funny.
well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Ben, we're gonna say goodbye to the audience. I just ask you stay on while we sign off.
Sure.
And so thank you everybody for joining me on the Flying Dutchman podcast and for Ben Lobo Taggart. And the book is What's Your Call Sign? And it's what 244 pages or something like that.
Something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of information, awesome pictures, and we will see you next time